I went on Reddit and searched up parents and coaches' biggest struggles in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and wow, let's break that down and see what we can do to fix it. So the first one here says, is it just me, or does every kids program have parents always causing drama? I can't seem to get the parents to keep the peace, and there's always someone beefing with someone, which inevitably trickles down onto the mat. To the gym owners, what has helped you manage the problematic parents? This goes for casual as well as competition programs. First of all, you are not alone. I can absolutely guarantee that every single person who coaches a kids Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program has experienced this. And unfortunately, there isn't actually a one answer quick fix to this. So I scrolled through the comments and I had a little look just to see what people were saying. And honestly, it was pretty good advice. Everyone was kind of in the same consensus that parents are really hard work when you're trying to do a kids Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, or any program really. But I think the number one thing is being able to set those expectations early. Now, this is the problem that when you're first starting out as coaching, you don't necessarily feel that confident or have that authority to feel like you can set that expectation with parents, and you need to. It's okay. Please set that expectation. I have made this mistake myself. I allowed myself to be determined by the families and by the parents in my programs, and I can tell you right now, it only leads to issues for yourself in the long run. So being able to set really clear and early expectations. So if you see someone talking on your mats, like if you see someone to the sideline and they're trying to coach their child, immediately nip it in the bud. You don't have to be rude, you don't have to be aggressive in any kind of way. But if you see a parent on the sideline and they are trying to coach their child, walk over and just say, let's just stop for a moment. I want to see how they get through this themselves. Let's see how they can work and problem solve this themselves. And immediately it's not coming from a place of, hey, shut up. It's actually coming from a place of, let's see what your child can do without you, without the parent dictating, without the parent being involved. And I have had some success with that. I think the second thing that we can try to do here is to set that expectation early with contracts. Sounds a little bit formal, but it's not. It's the same way that a parent would have to sign a waiver for their child to be on the mats. They also would need to sign a waiver or a contract of expectations for them. Now, I personally don't do this, but I would consider implementing it because it gives the parents a really clear guideline of what is expected as them as the role of a parent on the mats and off the mats too, in competition, in anything really. So I think that's probably a really positive way to frame it as well. Thirdly, unfortunately, it's never going to go away. It's never going to be something that will immediately be solved, always going to be something. I know some gyms don't allow parents in the room. They've set up like a separate room for the parents, and they have sort of CCTV footage of the classes that's occurring. I love that. If I personally could do that in my gym, I would. I don't have the space, so it's not something that I can do. But if I could, that would be my number one go-to. Secondly, I've just seen coaches say, all right, parents, like, you're welcome to be in here, but if you've got something that you want to go and do for 45 minutes, or if you want to go to the gym, or if you want to go run your errands, now's your chance. And I think that's a nice way to frame it, because then it's like parents alone time. They don't have to sit and watch their kid. They can kind of just go and do their own thing for a little while. But overall, it is something that we all have to deal with. It is something that is really challenging. And I wish that we had a number one fix for it. And I'm sure that in the future, I will see this post on Reddit 20 million more times, because it is an issue and it is something that we're all still trying to work through. Okay, let's have a look at the second one. Tips for coaching children and teenagers. Okay. How do I explain techniques to them better? How do I keep them motivated and eager to train while having fun? Sometimes explaining a technique in a way they understand is difficult. Also, any suggestions for warm-up drills? It could be anything from BJJ partner drills to conditioning or gymnastics moves. Any help would be appreciated. Edit, to clarify, I'm not talking about really small kids, more 11 to 17 age. This is a difficult age group because they're already teenagers. They already have those big adult hormones that are coming through. They already have so many things in their world that they're thinking about, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu isn't always at the top of that list. So being able to create a fun, engaging environment for kids this age that also doesn't feel too restricted or too kiddish. Now, I talk about this quite a bit, this idea of kiddish thing. I personally use games and I love that, but I'm also aware that by the time that kids get to that sort of 11 to 17 age group, they're not really little kids anymore. They're teenagers. They're sort of getting into that adulthood, and they like to be treated in that way. They like to be treated like they're not little kids anymore. They want to be treated like they're getting older older and they're more mature and they're adults, and even though they're not. But I also know that if I pulled out like a little storybook in any situation, they would be the first ones to sit down and want to listen to it, because yes, they're trying to grow up and they're trying to be adults, but at heart, they're still kids. They still want to do kid things, but it's framing it in a way that is positive for them, engaging for them. We don't want to make them feel like they're little kids. I still use games. I absolutely still use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu games. I love that keeps them immediately engaged because they're both working on something. They both have a goal, but I also change my language a little bit. So for games such as dirty feet, the way that I would talk about dirty feet for little kids is always like, you know, you've got your partner went and stood on dog poo and now they're trying to put their dirty feet on you, and oh my goodness, it's so funny and it's so silly. That language is not necessarily appropriate for a 14-year-old. They're kind of gonna roll their eyes, and I'll be honest, it's hard. But I think then if I talk about the game and still call it dirty feet and be like, all right, we're gonna play dirty feet. They wanna keep their feet on their partner all the time, and the top player wants to be able to escape that. So they wanna be able to get away from the feet, push the legs, and be able to find some sort of chest-to-chest connection. I can start using my adult language there, but I'm also aware that I'm still using games because that's gonna be the most engaging thing for them. I think secondly, creating an environment and creating a culture that is for that age group. And this is so challenging because when you start a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, I don't know about anybody else, I found this age group very challenging to be able to get. Now in Australia, wrestling is not really a big thing. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is definitely not, I mean, it's grown a lot, but it's not considered like a mainstream sport in the same way that wrestling is in America. And so finding kids that want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that age is a little bit more challenging. They usually want to play rugby, football, that kind of thing, which funnily enough has so many crossovers anyway. So if I could suggest anything of trying to keep kids engaged or even trying to find kids for this age range, look at other sports. Look at ones that slightly cross over. Wrestling is obviously going to be a huge one overseas. For us, it was rugby. So being able to connecting with my local rugby clubs and inviting them to come and do a session, inviting them to be part of our community just as much as they have their own community, because the takedowns and the standing stuff is pretty similar. You want to take someone down in rugby, you pick them up and you put them on the ground. Obviously there's a little bit more technique in both different ways, but essentially that's what we do. And connecting those communities creates like-minded people that then come to your gym because they're like-minded. And as soon as you have a group, we are now at the point where we have a really good group of kids in this age range because they all have similar interests. Most of them are footy kids. Most of them have played rugby. Most of them have done that kind of sport, and then maybe they're in their off season or they've decided to transition out of football, and that's why they're now doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it doesn't have that feeling of, oh, it's martial arts, oh, it's karate, or no, it doesn't really have that same feeling anymore. Whereas for someone on the outside looking in, they're 15 years old, they're looking for a new sport, they're gonna look through the door and be like, what are they doing? Why are they touching each other like that? Why are they rolling around on the ground? It's not that appealing. Fair enough, I don't blame them. So I think being able to find an audience that resonates with what you're trying to achieve in your program, really create that community. I think community is so important. Really create a culture where those kids feel praised, they feel part of something, they feel they belong, they feel that they want to come to training, and making it super fun and engaging. And I could ramble all day about using games. Honestly, you're probably sick of hearing it, but I really, really believe that if you can choose to use games with your kids, even at the age of 15. Don't get me wrong, of course, like you're going to change your language more, but even at the age of 15, these kids are going to engage. They're going to love it. If you liked this content, please like and subscribe. And I'd love for you to comment below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you've got similar experiences and what you guys did, because at the end of the day, I'm just one person. You guys are the whole community of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaches. So let's help each other out. Let's talk to each other, provide some feedback, give some comments below. If you're interested in learning more, follow The Art of Coaching on Instagram, where I share daily tips and tricks for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coaches.